I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Matthew. We're in Matthew 26, a very somber chapter, the events leading up to Christ's terrible crucifixion, but of course ultimately leading to his resurrection. We've already discussed how the chief priests and elders were conspiring to kill Jesus, and they found a way with Judas, as you all probably know. And we start today, and we'll paraphrase some of this in verse 14 of chapter 26. And then one of the 12, Judas being a disciple, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priest and said, "What will you give me? I will deliver him to you, Christ." They covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. Now, that was a lot of money for that time, probably worth about 2.5 years' wages. And from that time, he sought an opportunity to betray him. So it came then to the Passover meal, the evening of the Thursday of Passion Week, the day before his crucifixion, and Christ determined to keep the Passover at the house with his disciples. So he had asked them to find a place for them to prepare to eat that Passover meal. And in verse 19, the disciples did as Jesus appointed. They made ready for the Passover, and he sat down with the 12. Now, Passover is a very important event in Judaism. It's celebrated once a year. The date is variable, and it is a meal together that's done in a certain way, now called the Seder. And it symbolizes or types the coming Messiah that would take away the sins of the earth. Otherwise, the Passover lamb is sacrificed for the feast. And as Paul said in 1 Corinthians 5, Christ is the Passover. Otherwise, he fulfilled the Passover, so we no longer celebrate it because it's no longer needed because Christ fulfilled the law and fulfilled the Passover. But Christ had not died yet, and so they are celebrating Passover on the appropriate day. Note, of course, that Christ dies and resurrects on Passover week, strengthening that link of his fulfillment of the Passover. In verse 21, Christ finally says, "Verily, one of you will betray me." And of course, this made the disciples upset, and they all wondered if, who it is. And then Christ goes in verse 23, "He that dippeth his hand with me in the dish shall betray me." Otherwise, we know from another gospel that he dipped probably a piece of bread into the wine and a sop and gave it to Judas. As the Son of Man goeth, it is written of him, but woe to that man of whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It is good for him that he had not been born. So you don't want to be on the receiving end of a woe from Christ. And this does not happen that often in the Gospels. The Pharisees got it. Some cities around the Sea of Galilee got a woe, and it portends bad things for the future. And I think in this case, eternal separation from God and hell would be my guess, though it doesn't say that specifically. Verse 25, "Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? Christ says, Thou hast said." So this was really a polite way of agreement. We'll see this again later in this chapter when the high priest asks Christ, "Are you the Christ?" He goes, "You have said." So it's sort of an indirect way of approval in a cultural, historical sense back then. So Christ agrees. So what's the importance of Judas? Judas certainly indicates the depravity of man, and in regards to he was taught by the God of the universe and the Savior of mankind, yet he betrayed him. And it also, I think, shows the attack on Christ by Satan. We know from the book of John that Satan entered Judas to control him. So Jesus, at this point, realizing his power would be broken, as we know from Hebrews 2, the cross and resurrection would break his power over mankind, was desperate to do anything to try to destroy Christ. We saw this in the temptation in the desert back in Matthew 4, the demonic activity against him as well. We know overall the attack on Satan, his intent, actually from Revelation 12, the first part of the chapter, a very fascinating chapter. So this is really the last gasp effort of Satan to save his power, of which, of course, it'll fail by the grace and the power of God. Okay, terrible facts in this passage to consider. We'll talk about the Lord's Supper next time. Thanks for being with me. I hope these videos are helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you again on the next one.